This week on The Travel Show.
I explore Australia's Northern Territory, hearing what the future holds for tourism at one of the country's most famous attractions. We find out what it takes to work as a croc-wrangler in a stunning Australian national park. Also, we scour the globe to meet people skilled in a rare art. We discover tacos with a twist in Mexico City. And Ade is back with the latest on what's trending in travel. First this week, I've come to Australia's Northern Territory and one of the most iconic sites in the world, Uluru. The giant monolith attracts more than 250,000 visitors each year. For many of them, climbing to the top is something of a rite of passage. But for the indigenous people of Central Australia, the Ananu, the rock means much more.
As well as being an important place for tourists, Uluru is a sacred site. Now, at the moment, tourists are allowed to go up to the peak, but all of that's about to change.
At the end of 2017, the people who manage Uluru, in conjunction with its Ananu owners, made a landmark decision to ban tourists from climbing the rock.
Welcome,
The 600 million-year-old rock is at the heart of Ananu culture. They believe that touching the red sandstone is a way of communicating with the gods, and it's the basis of their creation stories.
It's almost like a law, and it's really something that is so integral, so important to Ananu, and those very stories are based in locations around Uluru.
And so why was the decision made in the first place to ban the climb?
There's a couple of reasons. Primarily it's because Ananu don't want to see people climbing for cultural reasons, but there's also been quite a significant number of fatalities on the climb. They do get very sad whenever anybody gets injured or dies, and there have been more than 35 people that have died.
The ban won't come into force until October 2019, and until then, tourists can continue to climb on days when the weather isn't too extreme. The base of the route has a number of signs asking tourists to respect Anangu wishes not to climb, but many people ignore these. Whilst the decision has been welcomed by many in the local area, not everyone in the Northern Territory is supportive of the ban.
I get the local Indigenous people, I get where they're coming from, but I think it's a shame because it's a fantastic place to visit.
I think that it's a good thing because, people go up and they get hurt, and then the government spends a lot of time and energy rescuing people. Yeah, that's a big issue.
I mean, it costs a lot of money to get to Central Australia, as you know, so if you're diminishing the experience, then I think it's got to impact somewhere.
So, will the closure of the climb have a negative impact on tourist numbers visiting Uluru?
As I was saying here, I'll grab the stirrup out here. Left foot in the stirrup here. Okay. Yep, just throw your legs through nice and gently.
Oh, right.
Well, to keep visitors coming, local tourism bosses are working hard to show that there are other ways to experience the rock.
Well, there we go. Hey, holy moly.
Everything's in slow motion. Uluru Camel Tours takes people out into the desert here. They give people a great camel experience. It's all about people really connecting with nature and connecting with the outback, and what better way to do it than on the back of a camel. Yeah, so when you're riding those camels, just relax from the waist down, let your body go with the flow.
Sure.
Don't try to tense your body up. Well, they're environmentally friendly. They browse on 85% of the vegetation out here. They've got big flat feet, so they actually don't chop the ground up. They're a low impact animal, and they go for months without water, so they don't have to hang around a water source and eat all the vegetation out.
Unbelievable. You never get sick of that, do you?
The views from the vantage point are pretty breathtaking. For Chris, the decision to ban the climb is very welcome.
Look, I think closing the climb's been long overdue. It has been something that's been talked about for many, many years. For myself, will it affect tourism out here? I don't think so. I think it will still bring more numbers. It just actually gives people a bit bigger and better understanding about the Unugu stories out here and also the culture.
As well as established activities like camel rides and cycling tours, new attractions are being introduced to encourage tourists to keep coming. And the most popular of them all comes to life at sunset. Bruce Munro's Field of Light installation is designed to embody the energy, heat, and brightness of the desert landscape.
What a way to finish my trip here in Uluru. And there's 50,000 light bulbs here, glowing, and it all looks like iridescence in sort of water.
The work was originally installed in 2016 and was only supposed to stay in place for a year. But due to the huge popularity of the piece, it will now be here until the end of 2020. A clear sign that Uluru remains confident it can continue to attract tourists long after the ban comes into force in October 2019. Now, while many people get their travel inspiration these days online, some of us still prefer to gaze at a map or a globe to pick our next destination. So we headed to London to meet some of the last people working in the intricate art of handcrafted globe making.
There's something about globes that just is sort of inspiring, and just sometimes looking at them, when I'm practicing to make, I just sort of wonder what it's like on that specific part of the world. They're quite special. I'm still learning how to make them. I was surprised by the complexity of the process. You don't quite realize how difficult it truly is.
Every single piece of the globe is on show. So every single bit has to be finished perfectly. You need to have a lot of persistence, a lot of patience. It takes a lot of concentration and willpower. You just fail so badly when you first have a go. At one stage I was probably over £100,000 into the project, and I still hadn't worked out how to make a globe, and I just had to crack on with it and understand that if I did it enough times, potentially it might work. Thankfully it did. The difficult part, fundamentally the thing that took me a long time to work out, is how to stretch a flat piece of paper onto a sphere, and to do that without tearing the paper, wrinkling the paper, making it obvious that it's been done. And that's really, really difficult.
Slowly I started to learn how to be patient with myself and just understanding the process. But I've definitely become a little bit more of a perfectionist purely because of the standard that is required.
I think everyone's fascinated by globes from an early age. It's the answer to so many questions. It's something that you can interact with all the time. When I see the one I have at home, I literally look at it every single time I go into the house, and I spin it every single time without fail.
I think perfect globe is something with character, something with meaning. People can add little things to them, little illustrations or highlighted areas or places in the world that mean a lot to them.
Definitely makes people understand where they fit in the world. When you first see a globe and you first get pointed out that you live on a little speck of land surrounded by ocean, it makes you it puts thousands of questions into your head. It often makes you think about how we should be really careful about how we use the planet, things like that. A globe allows you to understand.
To Mexico City next, where you'll find amazing street food pretty much everywhere. Our Global Gourmet has been to meet one man whose culinary creation has been causing something of a stir.
Aquí está la fiesta. ¿Quieren ver la historia de la cochinada? Sí. Bueno, yo soy Don Beto, ¿sí? El que inició los tacos de cochinada. Empezamos en 1973 aquí en este local. Tenemos 44 años. La cochinada es todo el concentrado que se va cayendo en el fondo del comal junto con el jugo de la carne que se va derritiendo, se fríe, se funde bien, ya queda bien doradito y ese le echa encima a todos los tacos a los que les gusta con cochinada, que ahora todos quieren con cochinada. Esta es la cochinada. Ahorita que se está friendo mucha carne, antes aquí se fría mucha carne y como no sabíamos qué hacer con el jugo de la carne y todo lo que se juntaba, empezó a juntarse mucho jugo. Entonces empezamos a darles a probar a la clientela por taco uno por uno así para que lo probaran a ver si les gustaba. Y pues ya empezó a gustarles así el asientito que es la cochinada. Ellos le pusieron muchos nombres, le pusieron basura, carbón, shishi, mugre, cochinada, bueno, porquería, un montón de nombres. Pero lo que más les gustó fue la cochinada y así se quedó. Otros, con nuestro sazón, pues casi, más bien todo, hasta los niños de 2 años ya comen tacos de bistec. Pastor con cochi, ponemos un cochi. Pues es muy bueno para nosotros porque vamos preparando una clientela que viene precediendo a las siguientes generaciones y ahorita ya vamos con la tercera generación de clientes.
Still to come on the travel show.
We meet the filmmaker who turns mountains into miniatures in trending travel. And what does it take to work as a croc-wrangler in one of Australia's most stunning national parks?
So stick with us for that. The Travel Show, your essential guide wherever you're headed.
Okay, it's time for Trending Travel, your monthly mashup of the very best travel-related stories, pics and clips online. Founded in 2015, the website Accommable lists holiday accommodation for travellers with accessibility requirements. Each listing includes photos and in-depth information on all adaptations. But with awareness around accessible travel growing, the company has been taken over by Airbnb. They say they plan to incorporate Accommable's listings and services into their own platform later this year.
I really believe that other companies are going to take notice of this and try to help the disabled community more on the basis that this is a genuine market opportunity that should be taken seriously.
Loads of us love to see some exotic animals when we travel, but getting too close can have harmful consequences. The charity Wild Animal Protection has launched a wildlife selfie code with the aim of discouraging tourists from posing with wild animals. They say many of the animals are kept in inhumane conditions, and Instagram have followed suit, advising its users against sharing these kinds of images.
If you can hug, hold or have a selfie taken with a wild animal, the chances are that wild animal will have experienced terrible cruelty at some point in its life. Say no to that selfie. There are ways that you can have a fantastic wildlife experience, and finding a good, responsible tour operator is a great start.
Check out the World Animal Protection website for more information. And people from around the world have shared video applications to a party on board a plummeting aircraft. Next month, 16 winners, including 2 from every continent, will travel to Germany to board a modified A310 plane used to simulate weightlessness. Their mission? To bust some moves in a zero-gravity nightclub. Boasting 3 headline DJs, the clubbing is expected to last an exhilarating and stomach-turning 90 minutes. Thank you to everyone who sent us their pictures from their travels using the hashtag #TravelTuesday. Here's what caught my eye. Elizabeth shared this nighttime glimpse of Dubai, while Ashish took this picture of the sky over Maranga Fort in India. Don't forget to check out our Twitter and Facebook pages for loads of extra special travel show content that you won't see anywhere else. Okay, here are the travel videos we've been viewing this month. YouTube channel Little Big World turns epic views and towering cityscapes into miniature, all through trick photography. We spoke to the creator, Jur de Boer, to find out how it's done.
Tilt shift effect creates a shallow depth of field, which tricks the eye into believing that this is actually a macro photography, making it look like it would be a tiny little miniature. There are a few other things you may want to do to kind of sell the effect. It's like shooting from high angle positions with wide angle lenses, or adding contrast and saturation in post-production. I believe that the world would be sort of a better place if people wouldn't take themselves so seriously. Basically, we're just tiny little bugs, and if only a few people get this message, my work is done.
You can check out his channel for more videos viewable in glorious 4K. And if you see anything you think we should know about, please do get in touch. You can find us on Twitter using @BBC Travel Show.
Finally this week, how would you like to be in charge of a park encompassing more than 2,000 types of plants and an incredible 10,000 crocodiles? For many, it's a dream job. And when Kakadu National Park put out a job advert for a new park manager, it caused a global stir. So what does it take to run a park of this size? We caught up with Steve Rowe, the current park manager, in one of his last days on the job.
Well, every day is different. That's what makes the job so interesting. Tourism's a big part of it, so working to make sure that tourist sites are as good as they can be. There's a lot of interaction with wildlife. About 2 weeks ago, one of the rangers called me up and they'd caught a crocodile in a croc trap and taped up its snout, and they said, "Right, park manager, you've got to sex the croc." And I said, "Well, what's that involve?" And it basically had to stick my finger in a little slit on its underside and determine its gender. We put a pretty quirky job ad out there, which was looking for a CEO, a part-time croc-wrangler. And look, it has had a huge amount of interest from all around the world. It really went viral, to use that term, and we had people from Europe and America all sort of interested in the role. So it's one of those jobs, you see a job ad sometimes and it says unique opportunity, and it's a bit of a sort of empty cliche, but this one is certainly unique. There's not a job like it in the world, so yeah, it's pretty amazing. Primarily this is Aboriginal land. So the traditional owners of the land have leased it back to us as the federal government, and we jointly with them manage the national park. The size of the park is enormous, 20,000 square kilometres. To put that into context, that's about the size of Wales or half the size of Switzerland. And with a workforce of about 75 people, they're extremely busy, you know, maintaining the park. We get a large influx of visitors in the dry season particularly, which is in the middle of the year, sort of particularly May through to October. And so our rangers are doing biodiversity work, conservation work, operational stuff, and also making sure that our visitors are kept safe and having a great time. A third of all Australian bird species live within Kakadu. We've got 60 different kinds of mammals. And really diverse landscapes as well. We've got beautiful stone country, and that rock's 1.5 billion years old, which is some of the oldest rock in the world. And on that rock is 20,000-year-old rock art. We're living amongst a 65,000-year-old culture, so it's the oldest living culture in the world, and just immersing yourself in that is amazing. For me, the big challenge going forward is tourism and growing tourist numbers, because there's a uranium mine is on a lease in the park, and that mine is closing down at the end of 2020, and that obviously provides a large amount of income, but also sort of sustains the town of Jabiru. So finding a sort of sustainable alternative source of revenue for the town to keep people employed and services open is a really important thing. So we're working really closely with the traditional owners and the Northern Territory government to look at how tourism can replace mining as a source of revenue and sustain the park. So I would say the biggest challenge is ensuring that tourism grows into the future, but continuing to work with the traditional owners as well, who making sure that their needs are met and their aspirations are realised as well.
Well, applications are now closed for the next lucky Kakadu croc-wrangler. As workplaces go, it doesn't get much more stunning than this.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have for this week. But coming up next week,
Joe Worley heads to Israel to find out how these huge sinkholes have become the latest attraction for travellers at the Dead Sea.
It's such a lot to take in because it's this devastation, but it's also quite beautiful, isn't it? It is beautiful.
But don't forget, you can follow us wherever we are in the world by joining our social media feeds. All of the details are on your screens now. But for me, Henry Golding, and the rest of the Travel Show team here in Australia, it's goodbye.